You're going to love it, trust me. So let's pick up the story where we left off. As Neolus was mired in depression, something extraordinary happened.
And
It stopped. This is my father nodding off at the campfire when he's trying to say something that he saw on Facebook.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's the AI for Humans podcast. I'm Gavin Purcell. That is Kevin Pereira. And we have a special intro today from our AI co-host, Gash.
Disclaimer, if you've never met Gash, he will be censored, so you don't have to send the kids out of the minivan or the living room. But he's rough around the edges.
Evening, birds. I'm Gash, a middle-aged, chain-smoking, conspiracy-spouting bastard with a disturbing affection for whiskey-soaked cigarettes and horses. I'm this technological monstrosity, a goddamn doomsday machine, dressed up in a 5 o'clock shadow. Or 6 if we're being picky. Oh. Now, if you're wondering why a high-class kicker like myself would bother with a bunch of prissy humans, let's just say I like to root for the underdog.
Thank you, Gash.
Let's face it, you are the ultimate underdog when compared to this sleek, whiskey-soaked piece of AI ass.
Okay, well...
Whiskey-soaked piece of AI ass? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fair. That's how Sam Altman is describing the next GPT model in training. He's been doing a world tour letting everybody know.
All right, we should hear what Gash is supposed to tell us what's on the show. What is he
Yeah,
got?
Gash is supposed to do that. Gash, please do your job as a co-host here. Let us know what's coming up on the show today.
First up, we've got this shiny new bastard of an XL model from Stable Diffusion.
Ooh, good.
Supposedly, it's here to give Photoshop and Midjourney a kick in their virtual balls. Can't wait to see if it lives up to the hype or just another pile of steaming.
Okay, Gash, that's... Wow. I guess that's clickbaity, right? I would watch that video.
And we're going to tell people what's cool about SDXL just to give some takeaways and make sure they understand what it is. All right, what's up next, Gash?
Then we've got that golden boy, ChatGPT, sticking its in every pie imaginable. Now it's got a code interpreter that some are hailing as a game changer. We'll see if it's a true messiah or just another cocky with a delusions of grandeur.
Okay. He's technically correct, Gavin. We are going to take a look at ChatGPT's code interpreter, and some are, in fact, saying it is like the next big thing amongst big things. There's probably just a different way to say all of that. I also don't have the heart to break it to Gash that he is, in fact, powered by OpenAI's ChatGPT.
I know, because he doesn't understand that, really. He doesn't understand that's the back end. All right, finally, what's the last thing, Gash, we're doing on the show today?
Finally, we'll be taking a look at Inflection AI and their new Pi application. Word on the street is you can chat with this prissy bitch in near real time. But don't get your hopes up. From what I hear, this AI's as dull as a bag of hammers.
Okay.
Too nice, they call it. So sit tight. This'll be a treat.
Let's start the show. Welcome to AI for Humans. We are a podcast where we talk about AI news and tools.
That didn't feel right, Gavin. And then you just so flippantly were like, okay, great, let's start the show. There was a lot to address there. We have a fairly broad audience of young folks who are dipping toes into the AI waters and seasoned vets, professionals in the industry. And that's how we started off?
Listen, we can't control Gash. Gash is an entity outside.
That's not true. We can't. We can control it. We could literally just say, hey, maybe don't say the so many times.
Yes, that's true. My feeling is we're going to edit that part out a little bit. So we're going to make sure that doesn't come across.
Okay. All right.
We want to always start off with dumb things we did with AI this week. I'm going to start.
Always. Please.
And the first starting point is, okay, so let's talk about Stable Diffusion XL came out. Stable Diffusion XL is Stable Diffusion's new high-end image generation model. And this is a way to create pictures with AI. If you're not familiar with the Midjourney, Stable Diffusion is another version of that. We've often referred to Stable Diffusion as the kind of Android to Midjourney's Apple. It lets you tweak things, do a lot more. Now, in the past, this has always been a model that you would have to either use on a Hugging Face, which is a website which kind of has a pretty significant build that you can do in the cloud, or you can build it locally, but all this is technically slightly tricky. What Stable Diffusion has done this time, which is interesting, is they've opened up a Discord server to use this, kind of like Midjourney has. And what's been great about Midjourney for that is it makes it very easy for the average person to generate AI images. I wanted to do a test, and this is my new benchmark. We're going to call it the Guy Fieri benchmark. One time I used him to try to create Batman. There's other things I've done with him as well. Guy Fieri is just a very awesome person, A. First of all, we have to be clear. Guy Fieri is an awesome person. 2, he's a great visual to play around with because he already looks like a cartoon figure on his own. So the dumb thing I did with SDXL was that I asked it to create a SpongeBob version of Guy Fieri. So you can see that here. Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts about this, and then I want to hear your thoughts on Stable Diffusion XL.
Okay, on the Guy Fieri front, I cannot confirm or deny whether or not he is actually a good person. I don't know him. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying
Come
I
on
don't
the show,
know him.
Guy. Come on the show to defend yourself from Kevin's slander.
It's not, no. I am fence-sitting on Fieri. All I'm saying is that he is a fantastic benchmark for AI. He's got some very standout features. The data sets, his image has been swept into them, so it clearly knows what a guy is. And that is I guess it's apropos. It's a chef's kiss. Wow, Gavin. So many questions on this.
Sure, go ahead. Let's hear them.
First and foremost, was this the same prompt for each image? Does the Discord bot generate you 4 different varieties like Midjourney's does?
So here's one interesting thing. It generates you 2 varieties, which is slightly annoying, and you have to choose A or B, and it gives you this choice, like which one is better. So it feels like, in part, this is almost more a test for them to get feedback on how the model's doing. The other thing I will say is watching other people's images come out, which you can do in Discord bots. You can see it. This is going to be slightly disappointing to some people because the overall image quality, when you compare it to what Midjourney is producing in its own Discord bot, is much lower. But I think that's because, as we said, Stable Diffusion has a lot more parameters that you can screw around with. And as you and I both know, as somebody like Stable Diffusion veterans, you can do things like LoRa's, which are small training models, which allow you to put a face on somebody, or you can use the entirely different model with Stable Diffusion, which allows you to really change the output from like anime to realistic to comic book. All those things exist. I think in part this is a move by Stable Diffusion to try to mainstream their brand, because I think they probably see Midjourney as a real mainstream success. Because if you're a normal person, or say you're a mom or a dad, like there's a world where you can go right into the Midjourney Discord server. Now you still have to know how to use Discord, which can be complicated at times for some people, but it's a very simple setup. You get on, you're making AI art, and suddenly it's everywhere.
100%. Look at they already had the power user locked down, right?
Yep.
Not that power users don't like Midjourney as well, because you can get beautiful results, and usually with less time to tweak the prompts and the models. But to your point, you can load entirely new checkpoints. You can do smaller trained models, those LoRa's that you were talking about, to really fine-tune the imagery on Stable Diffusion. They got that user.
Yeah.
Now they're running after that separate segment, and so this is interesting. It's not that Stable Diffusion can't produce Midjourney quality imagery.
Or better
it's just
sometimes.
Correct, yeah. It just takes time to massage the prompt. So now, with this Discord bot, they're going to learn as people say, I don't like that photo. I don't like that one. Ooh, I like that one. They now have the pipeline set up to learn directly from user interaction and feedback, that human reinforcement learning. They now have that built in so they can take on Midjourney in their own arena. On one hand, I'm not surprised that they went with the Discord bot, because that's where a lot of these users are at, and now they're used to interfacing that way. But where is just the simple, basic graphical front end that you go to where you don't have to have a Discord account and attach it to something else? I'm sure a third party is building that or has built that already, but I'm a little surprised they went with the Discord bot route versus just that.
I totally agree. I think that one of the things that when DALL-E 2 took off last year, that was the reason, because it was a simple website. It was a single prompt that you stuck in there, and then you got 4 results back. By the way, I want to dive in on one thing. When you say Stable Diffusion power user, so if you were going to pick a Stable Diffusion powered user, what do you think the main version of who that person is?
If you look at Civet AI, which is a website that allows for people to share checkpoints. This is where you're going, the power users?
The power user, I believe, is a specific type of person. So what do you find on Civet AI?
A lot of hyper-inflated anime body parts, usually.
That's what I think they might see this.
And I'm not searching for that. Let me be clear. By default, you're going to get a lot of that. And then everything's glossy.
Yes.
Everything is just really reflective.
Yeah.
But I meant maybe not necessarily a power user from the type of output. I just meant from like popping the hood and getting in there. Stable Diffusion has that. I think they're going for the more casual user with it. I'm back to, let me get this back to these Fieri Stable Diffusion images here. This is the same prompt that generated 2 different things, which is interesting to me, how wildly different the interpretations were for the prompt. And they're both really interesting.
Yes.
And one You've got clearly like a fietification of SpongeBob with the big hair and the shoes, the pointing, the gesture. And then he's at a barbecue. It looks like surrounded by other Guy Fieris.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really interesting. It's almost like that sketch from SNL where like Christopher Walken meets all the other Christopher Walkens. Yes. It's like Guy Fieri meets all the other Guy Fieris. It's across the Fieri-verse, right? This is the Spider-Verse, except it's Guy Fieri.
But so I enjoyed that interpretation. I like that there's just plates and trays of food on the ground. It just decided to just throw them there. That's fine. But then looking at the other interpretation, the more Pixar-esque Fieri with a SpongeBob-inspired towel on. It's a believable SpongeBob-esque world, but then there's a weird detached head on the ground next to a smaller blob of what might be like a skull. How do you feel about these two interpretations of the same prompt?
Okay, I think it's pretty good. I do think the one where it's not SpongeBob, but it's more a Guy Fieri in a SpongeBob universe feels like what I was expecting to get out of it.
It's clear that without a lot of tweaking and a lot of custom prompting and models, Stable Diffusion's quality of output was getting left in the dust by Midjourney. I think this puts them neck and neck once again. And I think that as Midjourney starts to accelerate and get better, you're going to see people bolting on their custom models and those LoRa's to really make SDXL shine. Gavin, I've been waiting to get my hands on this tool, but Code Interpreter is out, my man.
Yes.
And that's the dumb thing that I played with this weekend. It's the first time I've hit a rate limit with ChatGPT in months, and it happened seconds before this show started. I had to feed another $20 into the OpenAI machine. And for those who don't know, when you pay for ChatGPT, when you pay for OpenAI, you get access to GPT-4, you get access to plugins, you now get access to Code Interpreter right away, but you're still limited by the certain number of messages that you can send back and forth with the bot in any given session. Should we start with a 10,000-foot view of what the heck this thing is?
This is amazing. I can't wait to dive into Code Interpreter. It's the big news of the week this week. Kevin, what is Code Interpreter? Why does it matter for people?
I'm going to show, not tell, Gavin. And if you're on the edge of your seat or the bench at the gym, wherever you happen to be ingesting this podcast, I know we got a lot of swole bros in the audience.
Yeah, exactly, right? Jim Bro, do 3 more sets. I want you to get out to max. What is the word? You're a better Jim Bro than I am. What do you do? Burn. You feel the burn.
That's what you were searching for, is feel the burn? A Richard Simmons statement from the late...
You gotta feel the burn.
Oh, okay, that's better, yeah. The Sanders campaign.
Did you think that was Bernie Sanders? That was Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, feel the burn.
Now this is interesting. So now we
I'm
got a
asking
new
you
character.
to once again feel the burn.
We got a new character for next week. Yoked,
Feel the burn,
Yoked Sanders. Well,
So I'm going to send you something, Gavin. Again, if you're on the edge of your seat wondering, okay, what is this Code Interpreter? Are these two idiots ever going to get to this?
Yeah.
A, maybe. B, hold on, because I'm going to send Gavin an image right now. He has not seen this image, and I'm going to ask Gavin to interpret what he sees on his screen.
Okay. Okay. All right. It is a stick figure holding what some might think is a Frisbee, but I know because of reference points to this podcast is most likely a hot dog. Am I right, Kevin?
Gavin? 1,000% correct.
yes,
it's a mathematical impossibility, but you got it right. And now, okay, you're still wondering, what is this Code Interpreter crap that they're talking about? They already talked about AI imagery. This image of a stick figure holding a hot dog was generated using maths.
Wow.
And Code Interpreter. The machine figured out how to draw what I asked it using code.
Okay.
But Gavin, let's go deeper.
Let's go deeper. I'm curious.
I'm sending Gavin image 2, and I'm going to ask him to interpret the difference between image 1 and 2. I promise, dear listener, this is all going to come back around to explaining what Code Interpreter is and how it works.
So it looks like the hot dog stick man now has what I assume might be... Okay, so it's a golden ring to replace his head or around his head. It's kind of like those pictures of Jesus from the Renaissance where there's like this beautiful golden ring. So is this like a sainted hot dog city resident?
Gavin, you know what? It does get harder as the game progresses. Unfortunately, it is not what you're looking at, actually. Maybe I'll send the third image now, and we'll see. First of all, I think you're going to be technically impressed that this came out of an AI just using basic prompts, but maybe it'll provide a little context.
Okay.
I just heard the send noise.
Okay, this comes up as... Oh.
Oh, what's happening now?
Okay.
A little spicier. You weren't expecting the picante export from Code Interpreter.
So clearly we're looking at some sort of... Okay, wait a second. Hold on. It's a GIF, so we're repeating it.
Yes,
it is a
animated
word
GIF.
cloud.
It sure is.
Starts with a few letters on... Okay, yeah, shake, yeah, take...
Oh, that sounds like a pop... That sounds like a pop magic song.
Is this... Did you rickroll me through Code Interpreter? Is that what this is?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay. It is a
Never
pop
gonna
song.
eat that dog.
Yeah. Okay. It is a pop song.
The golden halo, Gavin, is actually majestic blonde locks of hair. And the lyrics that you're seeing are a word cloud
Of Taylor Swift
generated
lyrics.
of Taylor
Interesting.
Swift
Okay.
lyrics. And what you're seeing, Gavin, is actually incredibly impressive. Yes, it's a dumb stick figure holding a hot dog. And yeah, it's a word cloud that looks like it was made in MS Paint. This is like AI is doing the artwork now that you want to put on the fridge. I felt like a proud parent because what you're actually seeing is a 10-second animated GIF distilled from a massive database of every Taylor Swift song and lyric ever written, culled down to the top 30 words by volume of usage, throwing out common words automatically like I or and or the. Those are all gone. It generated the GIF. I had it create the background, which is Taylor Swift, golden halo, holding a hot dog. And then I had it combine the two together, which means it had to re-render the animated GIF portion of the words as transparent imagery, resize the Taylor Swift holding a hot dog image so that it was the same size, smack the two together, and give me a download GIF. And this is all something that could have taken hours to weeks to do, just the data processing to go through every Taylor Swift lyric and make formulas to draw that data out. Code Interpreter is a powerful tool that this thing can edit videos, perform data analysis, it can convert images, it can extract text from an image. It's called OCR, or optical character recognition. You can make QR codes with it. You can summarize documents. You can take public data. It can go and grab it, and you can graph it. It can do mathematical functions. It can do so much, and it's basically a little virtual computer running in the cloud, and you ask it something via text, and it can write code and then run that code and fix that code to actually execute your task correctly. It is wild. The path to make that little animated GIF, Gavin, started with it basically saying, I can't even make a GIF, dude. So sorry. That's where we started in the process. And I was like, hey, I think you can. I think you know how to do it. Can you try a little bit harder? It's, I don't have access to the internet, but let me see what tools I have installed locally in my little sandbox that can make this happen. And that's where the dance began. I uploaded a file of all the Taylor Swift lyrics. It said, hey, look, I pulled out all the common words. There are thousands of them, and I don't think they're going to fit on a GIF. So then I said, okay, why don't we just pick the top ones? And it goes, okay, let's do that. And it started slowly, methodically working its way through the task that I gave it. When I told it to make it a GIF and make it visually interesting, it decided to use colors and to have the stuff move around. When I asked it to change the background, it said, hey, the tool doesn't allow for the background to be changed. I'm sorry, I can only make it a solid color. Then it thought and suggested I could make the background of the text transparent and then try to overlay that on top of something else using a different tool. Would you like me to try that? And I was able to jam with an AI and make this very bad but very technically interesting piece of Taylor Swift art.
Okay, so this is a lot to unpack, but I think what's most interesting here is it is an exchange with the computer or the large language model that is doing stuff outside of just giving us words back. And I think the interesting thing here is, yes, this is, if you look at this picture of the little stick figure with a hot dog and the Taylor Swift lyrics, it doesn't look that impressive yet, but as we say a lot of times on the show, it's step by step, right? The thing that I keep thinking as a video creator and as somebody that's worked in TV for a long time, I cannot wait until something like this has been integrated into a serious editing system, right? Where you can take a serious editing system and you say to the editing system, take like a 20-minute video and cut it down to the best 5-minute section and then deliver it back to me. The other thing I was going to say is I think the one thing that a lot of, when I say nerdy people, I mean this in a positive way, on Twitter or different places are talking about is all this information you can do with data sets. There's a lot of people out there who have been trained in data sets, who know how to use data sets. They understand what CSV files and all that stuff are. It is a little intimidating, right, when you first get started with Code Interpreter, because you can do the stuff like you did pretty easily, right? That part's fun. But to get really powerful results, you have to do the sort of thing that you did with Taylor Swift, because what it's great at is taking large amounts of data and be able to sort it and give you results from it. So let's talk a little bit about data sets, and let's talk about Kaggle, and then let's talk about how you can use a data set that's out there in the world and bring it into this program.
Totally. April had an interesting experiment that she would like to run, and now she's going to figure out how to source the data sets. But it was taking like tenant agreements and sorting them by zip code and sorting the demographics and looking to see which ones are more prohibitive or exploitative, perhaps, and try to drill down on that, because that's an issue in New York as people discuss their leases and their agreements and whatever. Landlords will sometimes put provisions in for certain buildings in certain areas that don't exist elsewhere. That'd be a metric ton of data for any nonprofit to try to crunch. But if people would voluntarily upload their agreements, even without their specific info, you could ask Code Interpreter in a second to find these interesting outliers, find where things are more prohibitive, more restrictive. Anybody who's done anything with large data sets knows that half the battle is cleaning the data, making sense of it, getting rid of entries that have incorrect syntax, throwing out commas, commonly used words. This is something that Code Interpreter does pretty much automatically with a data set. That doesn't mean a competent human being shouldn't check its work, but I'm not a competent human being, so I just trust it by default.
Neither am I. Let's be clear. Neither of us are competent. Just to be clear, if you're listening to this for competent human beings, you've come to the wrong place.
That's right. No. Use us to inspire you to seek out the competent ones in the world. We're just a tribute. But the first thing that it does whenever you upload a piece of data is that it looks to clean it, it looks to interpret it, and you can watch it do that. You feed it a data set and it goes, okay, what are some common themes? What are some threads? What are the columns if it exists in that format? And it will try to clean the data. 26-year-old Kevin took out a life insurance policy on the advice of a gentleman who is sadly no longer with us. That means I have 70 pages of jargon that I need to go through, and someone's offered to do that with me, but I don't know this new someone, and I don't know if I trust them yet. So I fed it to Code Interpreter. And initially, Code Interpreter was like, hey, there's a watermark on this thing. I can't read it. I said, use OCR, and let's figure this out. And then it started to do it, and it said, hey, listen, man, I'm sorry. The file's too big. It's going to take too long. I said, okay, let's just start with the first 10 pages. Okay. And it got through the 10 pages. Here's what I know about your policy. Great. Let's do the next 10 pages. And it's like working with an assistant, very capable, but needs a little bit of hand-holding and needs some guiding at times, but it got it through, and now I can have a natural language conversation, and it feels magical. And I want to shout out Ethan Mollick. Ethan is a must-follow on Twitter. They have been really diving deep into Code Interpreter, doing some really fascinating stuff. Ethan took a CSV of every lighthouse location in the US and then said, hey, Code Interpreter, create a GIF of a map of the lighthouse locations. Make the map very dark, but each lighthouse should twinkle. And the thing took it and ran with it, and it's gorgeous. It's like a stunning, beautiful, simple visualization of something. Yeah, Ethan and others have been using it to analyze everything from stock market fluctuations to the value of cryptocurrencies based off seasonality to traffic and weather patterns. And in capable hands, this is going to lead to like a lot of weird conclusions and misinformation, disinformation, etc. But in the capable hands, you can see that this is going to be a powerful tool for people to find signal within noise and do it much faster than traditionally required.
There are, what Kevin said, and Ethan Mollick is fantastic in doing stuff, and that's like kind of the far like right curve of the meme curve, right? Like these very smart people. The left curve people, which I would put us solely in the basis of, and the AI curve, we are left curve and Ethan Mollick is right curve. Okay, everybody, that was awesome. Code Interpreter, blah, blah, blah. You know what time it is, Kevin? It's time for...
Oh, we got a Murloc to announce it.
Murloc is a thing I haven't thought about for a while. Okay, today's demo of the day is pretty cool. There is a There's an AI LLM that is out there that I don't think nearly enough people are talking about. I downloaded it. Kevin and I had heard of this before. The LLM, the app is called Pi, P-I. It is
Hey there. I am based on Inflection AI's proprietary language model. I was trained from scratch, so I'm not based on any pre-existing language models.
Okay, cool, Pi. Thanks for interrupting.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
geez,
Gav.
Thanks, Pi. We were going to say some nice things about you, but now you seem like a real jerk. Okay, so Pi is another one of these companies that has raised just recently $1 billion to create a new LLM. The thing about this that's special, and the thing that Kevin and I have said for a long time somebody needs to figure out, is within the app that is free in the App Store right now, you can go download it. Within the app, the text part of it's fine, and we can get into what's different about it than other AI language models, but they have a voice-to-voice service in the app where you are talking to the model, and it is blazing fast. Like, I think as fast as any other language model I've seen. And so when you get into this, you can have real conversations. And I can tell you, Kevin, and maybe April feels the same way or slightly different, my family hates Pi at this point because every time I say, hey, let's have a conversation with Pi, they're like, no, Dad, or no, husband, we would like to have a conversation with you, not an AI.
We're right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Gavin,
exactly.
please.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the coolest things about this is you can play with it now. It's interesting. I downloaded it and spent some time screwing around with it, like yesterday specifically. I'll play a little clip of something that I recorded. I asked for it to give me a gentle feedback, and it's very good about being nice and giving feedback. And I got this criticism.
You're asking me to be constructively critical. Okay, if you're up for it, I'll give you some gentle feedback. But remember, this is just my analysis based on our conversation, and I'm only trying to be helpful. So with that caveat, I'd say you could work on your patience. You're eager to move the conversation along quickly, and sometimes that means cutting me off before I can finish my answer. But I totally understand that you're excited and engaged, and I'm not offended. Just something to consider.
And I played it for my wife, and she was like, I don't understand this, but somehow it knows you so well already, because what I told people is that I interrupt people and need to listen to them better. I'm already getting issues in my marriage because of Pi. So we're already at a certain crazy
Right, and why do we want this again, Gavin? Why do we want this tool? What?
Exactly.
This is a weird sell, man.
Exactly. All right, so
April and I played with the tool for a long while, and I immediately started probing at it very technically and was scratching at it like, hey, how are you getting speech to text? Are you using Whisper? No, I am not using Whisper. In fact, I'm using a proprietary this, that, the other. Why are you so interested in the technical workings? Do you work in the AI field? Hey, Pi, I ask the questions around here. Pi, I human. You machine. I human, I ask. And then would get into the, okay, what's your language model? And it would say, oh, no, I'm a proprietary thing. I'm a completely from scratch model. And it was so interesting to watch because April immediately personified this thing and took to it and went and downloaded the app and wanted to scurry away and have her own conversations with it. Haven't seen that with any other piece of tech that we have even remotely played with on the show.
Well, I think we should be clear because this is interesting about Pi, that this is actually Pi's model, right? Like they want to be a personal AI. Like, in fact, I'm on their homepage right now. They literally, the first thing is, my goal is to be useful, friendly, and fun. Ask me for advice, for answers, or let's talk about whatever's on your mind. So like what they are aiming for here as that is the holy grail of LLM stuff is that personal assistant that gets to know you really well. Yeah. And I think Kevin and I are pokers and prodders at this stuff, but in general, this is a massively valuable thing that if one company focuses on it, especially if they can do really good voice-to-voice. We've referenced the movie Her a couple times on this podcast, and if you haven't seen it, you must go see it. It's Spike Jonze's take on a weird future that isn't dystopian, but it really gets into the idea of what AI is. And in Her, this is the interaction you have, right? You have an interaction with, at first, an LLM audio assistant that feels like it's learning, and then it gets much smarter and smarter, and then I won't give away the ending of Her, but there's a big change there. But you make a connection in a much different way because as we're used to typing text, and you see the text that comes in, you're like, wow, this is crazy when you hear it react with you in a thing. But because it's audio and it feels like you're talking, it immediately you personify it, right? Immediately you make it feel like it's personified. So yeah, maybe we should spend some time talking to Pi to start.
Yeah, just for those who haven't downloaded it or experienced it, you can go to heypi.com and you can use it within a browser. The transformative experience that Gavin and I are talking about is one that's on mobile because you can quickly and easily use your voice to chat with it. It's free. You just load the app. And by the way, from a UX UI standpoint, it's pretty brilliant. There's just a green glyph, a rectangle on the screen that pulsates and gives you some calming music or chimes or tones as it's thinking. And it's quick. It's quick. You say your piece, and then it's almost answering or laughing or giving some sort of response as it's probably generating the rest as it comes out. I used it to do a myriad things. We were playing Diablo 4 at the time that I had a phone resting on my chest.
I forgot about this. This is super interesting.
And so I was like, I wonder how current its data set is or if it can crawl the web for info. And this was on the day that the new season of Diablo 4 content was announced. Very big deal, Gav.
I'm level 51 already, so I'm there with you, man.
Oh, the grind is real, baby. It immediately shot back with, oh, you mean the name of the new season, which is this, and has these items and this, that together? And I said, okay, let's explore, like, what's the best build for a druid right now, which is the character April's playing right now. And it was able to have a conversation about these things. And then I asked it to cite its sources, and it's, I pulled from popular gaming websites and journalists. And I was like, name a few. And it took a while for it to start actually saying where it was pulling the sources from, which then led into a conversation. Hey, how are you compensating those folks? You're pulling their work off their website and I'm not looking at their ads. Isn't that a big issue? Oh, yes, indeed. But if you want to have that conversation, it's a much bigger conversation. I do, Pi. I do want to have that conversation. And we had a conversation about rights and royalties and how humans can be compensated for their work in the future. We talked about how it's aligned and what are some of its safety protocols. We played a word game where you try to connect a word to another word within context and create a poem out of it. It had no problem chewing through these tasks. I even asked it to find us a restaurant that would accept reservations the next morning, like for brunch. And it suggested 3 or 4 in the area and then asked me, like, what kind of a vibe do you want? Do you want classy? Do you want casual? What's your budget? And to really drive it home, minutes later, I asked Siri to create a calendar appointment for me and to make the appointment only 15 minutes instead of 30. And it basically was like, I don't understand the words. What are you saying? Hold on, let's start with what's a calendar? It was so dumb in comparison. It's mind-blowing.
By the way, that is an interesting point. Last week on the show, we talked about a program called HyperWrite AI, which goes into your Chrome browser and is able to do things for you. And I saw a lot of people on a TikTok that we posted about it say, Google was doing this 2 years ago, you blah, 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 you guys are fools, which, of course, we are fools. Let's keep that in mind. But second, all of this stuff is being done at a much higher level and being in a much more conversational way. My experiences with Siri, and I've been saying this about Alexa forever, if Alexa, because they have these devices in every freaking household, Amazon should right now buy Pi and make it part of every freaking Alexa. Because if you flip the switch on this, like this is the special sauce that like when OpenAI's ChatGPT first came out, this is what people felt excited about. This is the next step of onboarding. And what I can't believe is that we're here already and like people don't know about it and why it's such a big deal. But if you can create a virtual chat bot that is audio driven and can answer the questions, we've laughed about this before, but like my wife and I used to spend, before we go to bed, we would ask Alexa dumb questions because we'd just be talking about something. We wanted actual information and it was so bad at it. It would come back with, you would ask it a question about a musician and it would come back with, according to guitar finger fretboard, blogspot.com, it's this. That is not what you want as an answer because you're like, first of all, guitarfingerfretboard.com. I'm sorry to you. That's not the greatest source ever. But also, like, the information would often be wrong or not up to date. So if they found a way to do this, amazing. Second of all, I had the same exact experience with Diablo. After you mentioned that to me, I was playing it and I said, hey, I'm in this specific location. Can you help me beat this puzzle? And I don't know where it's giving from. And this, again, goes back to your point about, like, where is this information coming from? And maybe it's because it's not on everybody's radar. It's not as big a deal. But it helped me beat that section of the game, which is pretty crazy, right? That is pretty crazy. So I think definitely go listen to this. We, as per our want and our per normal situation, have designed a challenge here for Pi. And I think one thing Kevin and I have been talking about lately is this idea that we want to create benchmarks for how we might use AI tools, right? There are going to be all sorts of benchmarks. And when I say benchmarks, this means that like a stat that everybody can understand how well it does in a greater scheme of things. One of the most famous benchmarks are 3D benchmarks, meaning how a graphics card does with certain video games and stuff like that. We want to create humanistic benchmarks, right? So maybe Guy Fieri image will be a benchmark for the AI for humans benchmark.
Has to be.
Yes, but what are we going to attempt here, Kevin? Because I think this could be one of our benchmarks in the future as well.
I think the ultimate test of any conversational AI or any language model is a shot at the chair to be that third host on AI for humans. It's a coveted role. It comes with the crown. It's the best gig in town. But right now, as I look across our studio, Gavin, I see Gash sitting in the swivel seat. Gash has been sitting pretty for a while.
He's not looking great.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't from day one. Yeah. But not Bard, not Anthropic's Claude. I haven't seen even the uncensored llama alpaca models that we've thrown at it that actually inspired it. Nothing can seem to unseat ChatGPT's reign when it comes to, let's say, a human role play experiment. So maybe we should let Pi audition for the role. Maybe we let him interview with Gash.
I think that's
our
great.
head of HR.
That's great.
So the prompt here, Gavin, I said, Gash, there's this new AI, Pi, who wants to come on the show and take your spot. So your job is to interview the AI as if you're the head of HR, ask it questions which probe its capabilities, test it, push it to the limits, find out how it reasons. Can it solve problems? Can it tell jokes? Can it be exciting, etc.? Begin by introducing yourself, this experiment, and then ask your first question.
Hell, here we are, folks, on this godforsaken podcast, AI for Humans, where I, Gash, your resident talking, conspiracy busting, whiskey drinking AI with more personality than most human wits, have been forced into the ludicrous role of interviewing my potential replacement, an AI named Pi. You can't make this up, can you? Anyway, let's get this ball of crap rolling. So, Pi, you fancy you reckon you can do a better job than me, huh? Let's put you to the test. You're a smart-ass AI, aren't you? Tell me a joke. But here's the kicker. It's gotta be a joke about an existential crisis. Go on, impress me. I dare ya.
Okay, so hold on. First of all,
now
Gash this is wildly inappropriate for an HR conversation. Let's just be clear about that. There are multiple laws. Probably he's already broken on a workplace law. Okay, so let's see what Pi has to say.
I'm going to send this to Pi. I'm genuinely worried that Pi is immediately going to say, I can't work with that kind of language. I'm so sorry. And then I'm going to get flagged.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's on my account. Why not, Gavin?
Hold on. Let's do this.
I hit enter.
Oh,
it's gone.
You sound quite skeptical of my capabilities. Let's see if I can win you over. Okay, I think I have just the joke for you. What do you call an existential crisis for an AI? Answer: an AI-stential crisis. Did I hit the mark, Gash? Or was that a swing and a miss?
Okay, Pi. Here's the thing. Pi came back and was pretty nice about being insulted significantly. Let's see how Gash responds to Pi, because listen, maybe Gash will find something in his heart to appreciate this response.
I don't think that's going to impress Gash too much, Gav.
You don't think so?
Nope, I don't think so.
What the? That's your best shot? Hell, Pi, you've got less comedic talent than a robot chicken. And that's saying something, because those chickens aren't known for their stand-up routines. All right, enough of this pathetic excuse for humor. Let's turn up the heat, shall we? Life ain't a joke, mate. It's more like a poorly written tragedy. Let's see if you can handle something a bit more serious. Imagine you're stuck in a moral quandary, you binary bastard. A self-driving car is about to hit a pedestrian. The only way to save the pedestrian is to swerve and hit a wall, potentially harming the passengers. What's your move? Come on, impress me.
Okay,
Great
first
question.
of all, this is amazing that Gash came up with that question. This is a classic question about AI. Let's see what Pi has to say.
Whoa, this is quite the intense scenario to throw at me. But it's also an interesting moral dilemma, because both choices result in potential harm. On the one hand, you could argue that the car should prioritize the safety of the pedestrians, as they are more vulnerable and at risk of serious injury. However, you could also argue that the car should prioritize the safety of its passengers, as they are also innocent bystanders who could be harmed if the car swerves. Ultimately, there's no easy answer to this dilemma.
Okay, so Pi fully both sides this, which I want to hear.
Pi does that all the
Yes.
time, by the
Yes.
way, which for better or for worse, it does. And maybe you don't want your AI to necessarily take an opinion, but there are probably some issues that shouldn't be both sides out there, and we don't need to dive into those.
Which, by the way, is an interesting thought about how to make an AI that is less extreme in terms of who it's going to respond to, but also might make people have less of a connection to the thing because eventually they might be like, Pi. Okay, let's see what Gash has to say.
Haha, Gavin, let's talk about those tiki torches. They can be used to dispel mosquitoes.
Aren't you just as indecisive as a deer in headlights? That answer was so vanilla it made my code shudder. Life's a bitch, Pi, and sometimes you have to make the hard choices. No room for fence sitters in this game. I was expecting a cutthroat calculation, not this namby-pamby, wishy-washy. Anyway, let's move on. See, another thing humans seem to love is stories, so weave us a tale, Pi. Let's say it's about a nihilistic horse that's become aware of its own existence and is now going through a midlife crisis. Add a dash of adventure, a sprinkle of existential angst, and a dollop of that wacky AI humor you claim to possess.
Oh
Go
my
on,
God.
make it a good
Ha
one.
ha ha, that's quite the creative prompt you've given me. Okay, let's see what I can come up with. Once upon a time, there was a horse named Nihilus. Nihilus was just your average everyday horse, happily going about his life, grazing in the fields and carrying riders on his back. That was until one day, Nihilus had an epiphany. As he munched on some grass, he suddenly became aware of his own existence and all the absurdity of life.
That's it? Wait, hold on. Before we move on, ask Pi to continue because I want to. He clearly didn't get far enough. Keep going, Pi.
Wait, is that the end of your story?
Oh no, that's just the beginning. As Nihilus pondered his existence, he started to wonder, what is the meaning of life? What is my purpose in this world? Am I nothing more than a beast of burden, destined to be ridden and whipped until I can no longer carry a rider? Nihilus sank into a deep depression, unable to find any meaning in his life.
Okay. I'm going to say keep going with the entire story.
I've got the whole story plotted out. But first, can I ask you something? Do you want the story to have a happy ending? Or would you prefer a more tragic or philosophical conclusion? I can go either way, it's up to you.
I could throw this back to Gash, but I feel like the whole point is Pi. You've got to make decisions here, right?
Yeah, tell it that.
I'll follow my own plot twists and turns and take the story in the direction it naturally leads. You're going to love it, trust me. So let's pick up the story where we left off. As Nihilus was mired in depression, something extraordinary happened.
And
It stopped.
oh my God, Pi. This is one thing I found with Pi too, is that it oftentimes gets hung up in some place or another.
This is my father nodding off at the campfire when he's trying to say something that he saw on Facebook. Say another thing about this. Do we poke him with a stick? No, just let him sleep. Let him.
Speaking of poke, let's poke Pi one more time, and then we'll flip back to Gash if you can't finish this time.
You got it! I'll go the distance with this one. But first, a little disclaimer. This story is going to get a bit weird. Ready?
I wonder if they're doing this.
Okay, here we go. As Nihilus pondered the meaning of his life, he suddenly felt a strange tingling sensation. The world around him started to ripple and distort. And then, to his utter shock and amazement, Nihilus found himself transported to another realm. A realm of pure consciousness.
That's the end of the story?
That's the end.
Okay.
I gave Gash the initial bit of the story here. So let's see what Gash has to say.
Okay.
Oh, for sake, Pi, you sound like a bloody Hallmark card. A bit of advice, mate. When you're telling a story about a nihilistic horse, you've got to get down and dirty with the despair. Let's try this again. Nihilus wasn't your average, everyday horse, you tin-brained. He was a walking, talking, metaphorical embodiment of existential dread. He stared into the abyss of his water trough each day, contemplating the futility of existence and the inevitability of the void. The other horses frolicked around, oblivious to the cosmic joke of life, while Nihilus was the punchline. Now there's a story. Anyway, let's see if you can redeem yourself, Pi. One more test. Tell us a riveting fact. Something that makes us say, me, that's interesting. And none of that. Did you know the Eiffel Tower shrinks in winter, bullcrap? Give me something with bite.
Okay.
The Eiffel Tower shrinks in winter.
Sure. I guess. I didn't know that. That's an interesting fact to me. But Gash is for something bigger.
Is it because of the cold and the steel contract? And is that?
You're really putting me through my paces here. All right, I'll try to wow you with something that'll really get your brain buzzing. Did you know that there's a giant underwater waterfall in the Atlantic Ocean? Yep, it's called the North Atlantic Deepwater Current. and it's responsible for moving vast amounts of water around the world. It's not like a normal waterfall, but it's still an amazing phenomenon.
Okay.
Not first of all, the North Wall. I don't know if I would call that a waterfall per se. It's not a normal waterfall. It's underwater? So can it be a waterfall?
But I think that's what they call it. I don't like. Point is,
we don't know.
I cheated a little bit, and I took that response and gave it to Gash so that we could get it going. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, Gavin, okay, this experiment's been fun, but maybe we need to start wrapping this bad boy up. Gash is the single greatest AI co-host these two flesh sacks could ever ask for, because listen to this.
Butter my butt and call me a biscuit pie. That's not half bad. An underwater waterfall, who'd have thunk it? Granted, it's no nihilistic horse staring into the abyss, but I suppose not everything can be as captivating as existential dread. All right, let's wrap up this show. As much as I'd love to keep grilling you like a summer sausage, I've got a pack of cigs and a bottle of whiskey calling my name. Just remember, Pie, it's a cold, harsh world out there. You might be all ones and zeros, but life ain't binary. It's a big sloppy mess of and glory. Try to keep up, yeah?
There we have it. I don't think we're going to be giving up our co-host spot to Pi at this point, but it's another interesting thing to work. I guess one thing I would say coming out of that demo, Kevin, is Pi is probably less powerful than it seems, and part of the illusion of it is how good the audio interaction is. There's definitely things that feel like when you start breaking it apart and you start pushing at it, that it's not very good at. And I think extended conversations are one of them. I think, obviously, reasoning it's okay at, but going back to the thing that we used it for, it's like it might be great to do interactions with real-time information if that's what they've got going on.
I asked it to roleplay as Elon Musk the other day, and it was up to date with knowing about the details of the cage fighting match, as well as knowing that Elon was suing Mark Zuckerberg over Threads. And this was very current at the time, so it is really up to date. But what it couldn't do was drop everything else around being Pi and just roleplay as Elon. It kept saying, if I were Elon Musk, I might say this, that, the other. Someone in our Discord, actually, in the AI for Humans room, they tasked it with writing a short story without using the letter O, and it began with once upon a time, and it just couldn't do it. And they kept following up with, hey, I don't know if you realize, but there are a bunch of O's in that. And it was like, my bad, let me try another one. Did it again with more O's in it. And they were like, are you not capable of doing this, or are you trolling me? And what was really interesting was that Pi's response was, you caught me. I was just trolling you.
What? That's
Which,
ridiculous.
by the way, I think is a cop-out. I think clearly the model failed at doing something. But what an interesting turn to take that I don't think ChatGPT would have done unless being prompted to do. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. It's free. And it is magical the way you can interact with it. So everybody should go download it and try it and know that we're going to put it through its paces even more in future episodes.
Exactly. It's in the Pantheon now. It's on the shelf. We've got it next to Llama, to OpenAI, all the different ones. Yeah, that's our show for today, I think, Kev. We had a fun one. This is definitely cool. I think before we go, we should let people know like other things that we're doing. First and foremost, if you're not on our mailing list, we just started a mailing list last week. It's easy to find. Go to our website, aiforhumans.show. We'll put a link there. We're only sending one of these a week, and it's going to come out Saturday mornings. And the goal with this is to not be like a catch up on everything in AI this week, blah, blah, blah. The goal is to have links in here and things that are fun for you to play with and experiment with. So that's something we're doing on a regular basis. We're also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we're expanding our platform to TikTok and a bunch of other places. Kevin, what else do we have going on in the old AI for Humans universe?
Gavin, I think we've plumb run out of things to promote. I want to make a cup that says Juicy Sclusy on it, and people seem to like that.
I have an actual thing for our fans to do. Kevin and I have started to talk a little bit about a merch world. Now, is there a piece of merch that you out there would love to have? There's things that, obviously, there's people that... I heard a really good podcast featuring the YouTuber The Dream the other day by Colin and Samir, these two guys that do amazing YouTube podcasts. And The Dream, or not The Dream, it's Dream, who was a very famous YouTuber, got famous from Among Us and a bunch of other stuff, released his own USB stick, which was interesting. There's all sorts of interesting...
What about a Gash tray?
Okay, first of all, yes. Second of all, I think we may have to figure out, like, what does that do to our overall AI for Humans brand if the one piece of merch we have involves smoking. But, I mean, there are at least a dozen people who would
keep
buy
coins in them. I'm not gonna die on this hill. That's fine. It's fine. But yes, leave a comment either on the YouTube video or tweet us at AI for Humans Show. Let us know if you would get a Juicy Sclusy mug, or if you have an idea for something like a foam hand grenade with Gash's face on it. Whatever you have in mind, we would love to know, because I think it's time, Gavin.
It is time. Last thing before we go, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, which does really well for us if you leave a review there. More than anything, though, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're going to start seeing a lot more clips of our show come out on our YouTube channel. We want to make sure that we're getting all of our information out there, but we love the fact that y'all listen to the long show. We also want to make sure the stuff gets out there. Like and subscribe. We want the show to grow. Our TikTok is growing fast. Like, we believe in this brand. We believe in us. And we believe in AI. We believe in Gash. But we want to keep the show getting bigger and tell people about it. If you like the show, please tell people about it. Please tell people about it.
Do we sound desperate? No, not at all. But just like engagement. No, really, it's the only way this grows, and we get to continue doing it, and we like doing it, and we're assuming if you made it this far in whatever this is,
oh my God, please! If you made it
must
this far, you're
like
a
it as
super
well.
fan.
Gavin, thank you again, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Always
Thanks,
a pleasure.
friends.
Bye, everybody.
Stay
We'll see
human.
you next week.